Your husband wants to buy a jet and he wants to fly it himself. And you're thinking, he's only going to kill himself or he's going to kill all of us with him. There's no way am I going to allow him to buy a plane and fly it himself. That's not happening on my watch. And you're right, a lot of these guys that went out and bought their own airplane and fly themselves actually killed themselves in the process. But, you know, there are ways, you know, and ways. I mean, training is key, coaching is key. And lack of information sometimes is what killed these people. So, however, there are ways of being very, very safe. And we'll be talking about this a bit later in this video. But let's go and look at 3 accidents first. And we'll see, you know, why you are so concerned of these crashes. And I'm going to show you 3 crashes that just happened recently. And you'll see quite clearly, you know, how even your husband could maybe get himself into a situation like this. But then we're going to be talking about what should have been done. And then I'm going to talk to you about the solution that I have here. In order for, you know, your husband to be able to learn to fly, or if he already flies, to get the right training and coaching to be safe. But let's get into the accidents first. Now, the first accident we're going to look at is that of a Pilatus PC-12. Now, the Pilatus PC-12 is a Swiss-made aeroplane. They built quite a few of these. It's a single-engine turboprop. I know you say, oh, just one engine, but it's very, very safe. They call it the SUV of the skies. It's Swiss-built. Nice cargo door, so you can put all your gear in there, you know, your mountain bikes, your stuff for your kitchen, skis, golf clubs, whatever you're going to take with you and the family. And so it's a great aeroplane for this. It also lands at short distances. So it's great if you live like in the mountainous regions in the northwest of the United States. It's a very popular aeroplane. Now, this particular PC-12 took off from a place in Wyoming in 2024 with a few people on board. It's a family, and the dad was flying the aeroplane. The weather wasn't too good, so they get to 24,000 feet. There's storms ahead. The autopilot fails. And the pilot's now flying manual, and he starts flying around to try and avoid the storm. Doesn't really know what he's doing. Gets into a situation where he loses control of the aircraft, and the aircraft ends up crashing, killing everybody. Now, the pilot had a private pilot's license and an instrument rating, so he did not have a commercial pilot's license or an airline transport pilot's license. Those are things that if you are going to learn to fly and fly your own airplane, I do recommend you go and get those certificates as well. That would have helped. But one of the key elements here was lack of training regarding weather and icing. Understanding icing. Now, I've worked for a number of different airlines, and every winter, or just before the winter season starts, we would always do 2 days of winter operations. They sit us in the classroom, and they put, you know, loads of videos up looking at different accidents that have happened caused by icing conditions. And they would drum it into us, the importance of de-icing, the importance of, you know, being aware of what certain icing can do, how to avoid certain icing conditions in flight, or what to do if you do encounter icing, you know, and they would drum it into you. And every single year we would learn something new, because, you know, they're discovering new things about weather and aerodynamics every year, and they would put this into the training system. But, you know, as an airline pilot, that's what you do, and the airline's job is to keep, you know, their pilots safe and their passengers safe. So they're constantly, you know, developing a training system to keep everybody safe. When you buy your own airplane, you don't have a support system like this. So this is what happened with the PC-12. Loss of control in flight, went into that bad weather, didn't have an understanding of upset recovery training, just had a private pilot's license, and these all factors played into the fact this airplane ended up crashing. Now, the second accident we're going to look at is that of a HondaJet. This is a jet, nice little airplane. This happened in Mesa, Arizona, and this was actually on takeoff. And again, it was a father flying the airplane with his family in the back. They're coming down the runway. They get to V1, which is a decision speed. Now, V1 is an important speed because before V1, if you have any types of failure, you've got enough space to be able to reject the takeoff and stop the airplane on the runway. You're going to have enough runway to do that. That's how the V1 is calculated, based on the airplane, the runway, and the weather conditions, so temperature and stuff like that. At V1, if you have any type of failure, you're told to take the plane into the air. Now, one important lesson I learned as a 737 pilot, one of my instructors said to me, remember, Fabrizio, he said, airplanes are built to be in the sky, not on the ground. They actually behave better in the air than they do on the ground. So when you get to V1, if you have a failure at V1, take the problem into the air. Now, obviously, you're taking off, so you're going to have plenty of fuel. You go up into the air, get the airplane under control, go up to a certain altitude, get into a holding pattern, get the checklist out, burn some fuel, take your time to plan your landing. You've got plenty of time because you're just taking off, so you've got plenty of fuel. Fuel equals time. So that's the suggestion there. But what happened in this case is the pilot got to V1, the airplane continued down the runway, and after a few seconds, he decided to reject the takeoff. So he rejected the takeoff. There obviously wasn't enough runway, so the airplane went off the runway into a road, crashed, and nearly everybody died. One person walked away from that crash. It was the son of the owner pilot in this case. Now, what happened here is I don't think the pilot had an understanding of runway performance. However, I'll tell you one interesting fact. A couple of friends of mine, one is a Gulfstream G550 simulator instructor and also pilot, check airman on that airplane. Another one is a Falcon 7X and 8X instructor pilot in the simulator. And both these two pilots who are very experienced, I've known them for many years, they told me, and they're teaching professional pilots to fly the 7X or the G550, that when they introduce these failures at V1, so many of these pilots decide to stay on the runway and reject the takeoff and then end up crashing the airplane off the end of the runway in the simulator. And they say to me, if they're doing this in the simulator, they're going to do it in real life. And these are professional pilots flying private jets, which is why the private jet sector has a really, really bad safety record, because these pilots are not realizing the importance. You know, these numbers, this V1 number has been calculated by engineers, and it's there to keep you safe. So it's a type of training, coaching, whatever you call it, supervision, and that's not there. So, you know, this is what happened in this case of this HondaJet. Now, the third accident we're going to look at is that of an Embraer Phenom 300, another nice aeroplane. This happened in Provo, Utah. It was on the 2nd of January. I did a video about this. You can click on the link above to watch this video. Here it was a situation where the airplane had been in a heated hangar, pulled out the hangar. The pilot owner decided that because it was in a heated hangar, it didn't need to be de-iced. Got on the runway. As the airplane lifted off at the regular airspeed, it had icing on one of the wings. That wing stalled. The airplane flipped upside down, crashed on the runway, and miraculously, the guy sitting next to the pilot ended up in hospital but then survived, and the two ladies in the back survived and walked away with a few scratches. However, the pilot died. So this could have been avoided by de-icing, and again, this is another situation. De-icing an airplane is really important, and that's one of the things they stress when you do these winter operations courses with the airlines, the importance of de-icing, and when in doubt, always de-ice. Now, I know it takes some time to de-ice an airplane, and it also costs money, but you know, it's so important to do this kind of thing because it's going to keep you safe. So all three of these accidents could have been avoided if the pilot had had the right type of training and coaching. Now, you're thinking, well, how can I provide or get my husband this type of training? Does he really need it? Well, John Eldridge has written a really, really interesting book called Wild at Heart. And he talks about men in this book. And then he wrote another book with his wife, Stacy, about women. And one of the things he discovered, he says, every man longs for a battle to fight, an adventure to live, and a beauty to rescue. And so for the man, learning to fly, I mean, that is like a battle to fight, but it's also an adventure flying. And one of the things that women love to do is to participate in their man's adventure. The other thing is, talking to a lot of pilot owners recently, at least 4 or 5 of them turned around and said to me, you know, I love flying because flying really helps me with my mental health. It keeps me sharp. It heals my stress. It brings me joy. When I'm up there at 35,000 feet, I just need to focus on the flying. I look at the sky, the freedom it brings you, the joy of flying your family around. It brings a lot of satisfaction, and it fills that need for adventure that men have. And as a wife, you can sustain your husband in this and participate in this adventure. However, you want this to be safe. So you want your husband to be safe. Now, having your own airplane is great, not only for the family, because it's safer travel, less travel time, because you can literally drive your car up to the airplane and get out. I said some of these airplanes, you can put your gear in there as well, your mountain bikes and things like that. And you can land at a lot more different airports. So, you know, it does offer this great advantage for a family. It's also a great business tool, allowing your husband to be able to get from A to B to C to D and do, you know, more business meetings in the space of 2 to 3 days and be home instead of being away for maybe a week, 10 days. So these are advantages which is going to give you better quality time as a family. But, you know, I understand your dilemma here. I really want my husband to be safe. But how can we do this? I don't want my husband to kill himself or kill all of us in the process of him flying and embracing this adventure. And this is where coaching comes into it. So I've developed a new coaching program where, pilots will be trained in a certain way by my whole team here. And there'll be coaching sessions online, in the airplane, in simulators to, really make flying safe and fill those gaps and create this supervisory system around your husband to keep him safe, a bit like the airlines do with airline pilots, and help him progress. And the coaching is not just technical coaching, it's also mental coaching, performance coaching, because what you have to understand is that flying an airplane, flying a jet in particular, is very much a peak performance thing. So you have to be in this peak performance mode, and it's not just about knowing about de-icing and thunderstorms and things like that. You also have to have slept well, you have to work out because that has an effect on your brain, you need to be fit, you need to be sharp. And so these are all important factors. So we're bringing in here a coaching system that not only going to take care of the technical side of the flying, also other aspects, in order to make sure that your husband is going to peak perform when he gets in that airplane, whether he's flying on his own, he's flying with another pilot, or he's taking the family on a nice jolly outing. And this is really important. So if you're interested in this, I suggest reach out to me and we can do a one-to-one call. I'd love to hear about the airplane that you already own or the one that you're thinking of buying, what your pilot experience is, what we can do here to help you to be safer, and talk about developing this coaching system around your needs. And this is really, really important. So reach out to me on an email and we can schedule this call, and check out these other videos we've done here on Biz Jet TV, over 1100 videos about private aviation. And that's all from Fabrizio Poli here on Biz Jet TV, and I'll see you on the next one.